Hi everyone, thank you for sticking around. I know there's a couple of great AI sessions that I'm up against, so I appreciate those of you that stuck around. I also want to point out, I think my slides did the same thing as Liz. They have turned very bold when they were not bold before. So some of my formatting may be off. Also, my updated version did not make it on, so you can tell one thing I did test and correct afterwards is not showing here, if you can pick it out. Kudos to you for noticing the one thing I should have tested and fixed here. So user testing is something that I am personally very passionate about. This is going to be mostly LMS agnostic. I'll talk about a couple of Moodle things in here, but really this applies to any online learning environment. So a little bit of introductions. My name is Bryant. I work for Moodle. I'm part of our newer commercial services team. I'm a learning designer. So I help people learn how to use front-end Moodle, help them spruce them things up, really anything you need front-end, my team can help with. I started my career as a high school science teacher, dabbled in some Moodle, and then as I moved on to the next phase of my career, I was basically handed a Moodle site as an admin and I was told, hey, run this for us, please. So that was a very big time of growth for me. And at that government agency, we did a lot of this user testing and some different compliance type things for our designers to really help with consistency. So some of this is from that foundation in my career. And then I worked for a Moodle partner for a bit and then was eventually scooped up by HQ, and I've really loved being a part of that team. So I have 3 phases I'm going to talk about today. None of this is groundbreaking. This is all solid foundational skills I believe most of us as designers should always have in the back of our minds, but sometimes we get busy and we forget, because often you may be the admin, the designer, the support team. You have many hats, you have many roles. And so as we go through this, I want you to think about, I think this is on my next slide. Nope. This slide. I'm going to skip ahead to this one. Going off script, going out of order. As we go through this, I want you to keep yourself in mind. You work hard for what you do, for your learners, for your staff, but really you are one person. You may have a team around you, but you only have so much time in your day, in your life. So as I talk about these things, that doesn't mean you have to do all of them. What can you fit into your schedule? What are you already doing now that you can celebrate? What's something you can work towards in improving your testing cycles to then better benefit your learners along the way? So as you think about those things, remember, you're not perfect. Your staff isn't perfect. You can probably notice I'm not perfect by the typo on that first slide. But really think about what's essential for your learners, what's going to be best for them and for your teachers. Backtracking here. So we're going to talk about 3 phases as we go through this: the checklist, a test run that I think is best for either the admin or the teacher to do, and then that user testing phase at the end. When we have time for questions at the end, I actually want to get you guys to answer some questions. What do you do that works well? What have you done that doesn't work well? So be thinking about that, and I'm going to flip it on you a little bit at the end. So why are we doing this? How many of you have taken a course, and I want to see a show of hands, where you've started to go through it as a user and you got stopped because some kind of setting wasn't right and you couldn't progress any further until you reached out to support? Well, not as many as I thought. How many of you have gone through a course and you're progressing along and then all of a sudden it's not quite clear what you're supposed to do next? So you find yourself, yeah, that one's a little more common. How many of you are the super detail-oriented ones that notice all the typos in the courses? That was a quick, that was a quick hands up. How many of you as designers have made those mistakes on the other end and found it afterwards? Yeah, I think we all have. It's okay. It's okay if you raise your hand there. So that is why we're talking about this, is because we're not perfect, right? But if you have steps and systems in place, it can help you to have that consistency, not feel stressed, and be able to find those things, get through them in an easy manner. So phase one, I like to recommend is having some kind of checklist. I'm not talking about just a mental checklist, I'm talking like an actual piece of paper checklist. I'm a big fan of checking things off. You can have a digital checklist if you want to, but what are those essential things for your university, business, nonprofit, whatever your organization is, what are those essentials that you want to check as you go through every course? This could be simple things like activity completion, course completion. If you have restrictions, it could be non-technical things like proofreading, clear directions. Thinking back to Liz's presentation, if you were here a bit ago, it can be that teaching presence. You can go more UDL style. So this checklist can go any direction you want it to. Branding guidelines. Is the flow logical? And sometimes that flow piece, as a designer, we know where it's going. It seems logical to us. So having that second opinion with that one really helps. A key one here that I think we all might say is one we often forget or skirt by is the accessibility. When we get busy, we make the assumption that we've made it accessible from the beginning. But it's always, I think, essential to double check that accessibility as you go, whether you use a tool like Brickfield or you have certain things on this checklist that you go through, or you have someone you bring in to help you with that accessibility testing. The second phase is a test run. This, I actually find this one to be the most fun, where you actually run through the course, but I recommend you do it twice. And both of these runs with an actual student login. In Moodle, the login as works fine, but it would be better if you had an actual login so you get the full, clear experience of the student. The first time, pass everything. Be that perfect A student, do things exactly like you'd expect or want your learners to do. The second time, go through, make mistakes, get things wrong, try to go to the wrong place, because not all your learners are going to be that first perfect student in there. As you're doing this in your student run, be looking for, does the feedback, the automatic feedback, appear like you want it to for both the right answers and the wrong answers? Can people jump to where they're not quite supposed to go yet? Can they skip the essential things that are maybe easy to miss? And as you're doing that, take notes for yourself. Because if you're like me, you get lots of ideas, you get really excited, like, ooh, I can fix this, I can add that here. But as you go through the course, you may forget. So take yourself some good notes as you go. Does your activity completion check off? Can you easily find the next thing? I was talking to someone about this at the poster session and in a workshop yesterday. You don't want your learners to spend so much time looking for what they're supposed to do and not actually learning. You want to take into consideration, like Liz talked about, that digital currency and kind of their patience within that course, so they really focus on the things you want them to focus on. And then after you've done this, flip your role back to the teacher role. If there is grading in your course, now go and try and grade those two students. Can you see what you need to see from them? If there's an assignment or a quiz, a forum, whatever it may be, does your rubric or grading guide or scoring match what you are trying to assess? Is it going to give them that feedback you want to? So really consider that 360 approach from the designer perspective, the student, and that teacher perspective. And then last, the user testing. This one is one that I can admit I have not done as well in the past. The first two are more my jam of things that I do when I do testing of courses. This one can be harder to find those users and get someone in there to test your course. Especially if you're a university, you can't expect someone to say, hey, come take my entire semester course, and I need this by Monday. by the way. That's not going to happen, right? So when you're bringing this together, this group, whether it's actual learners, if it's colleagues that you work with often, it's best to find someone who hasn't seen the course yet. You want fresh perspective, fresh eyes, no one making any assumptions about it. And then give them a little bit of instructions, especially if it's that university group. Do you want them to look at your first week, your first section? What is it you want them to focus on as they go through this? And then gather that feedback. Are you going to stick a little feedback or forum activity with some guided questions in there? Do you want to talk to them and interview them afterwards? How are you going to gather that information? One thing I really love to do, if you can, it feels weird, but if you can say, hey, Sam, I know you haven't seen this course before. Can I just watch you over your shoulder as you do this? Like, it seems weird, right, to do that and just watch someone do things, but it gives you a great view of how someone initially navigates a course. Because when they're first going into your course, they're not going to remember like, oh, I struggled to find this thing, or I wasn't sure to click. You can see them actively scanning the screen. How long does it take them to find the next activity or get started on the course? So it provides a different perspective in some of these user testing phases. And as you're doing all of this and planning your course, if you can, give yourself and really plan for that time to make the adjustments. We are all busy. Sometimes we cram. I know from my workshop yesterday, I was cramming the night before to make sure I got that ready. But give yourself the time to make these adjustments. So plan ahead. When do you need your user feedback by? How much time do you have in your busy schedule to make sure you get through those changes? If there's significant changes, are you going to have to do this again? Do you need to test as a user a second time or bring in this feedback group that you've been working with here? This went very quick, but on purpose, because I want to hear, this is the part I'm flipping on all of you, I want to hear about some of the things that you all test. What processes do you have that I didn't talk about here, or that maybe you disagree with? Other successes that you've had with this. So my microphone runners, hopefully I don't make you like zoom around too much here. But does anyone have something that they test that I didn't talk about today that you would like to share? Oh, thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Hi. So one of the things that I think in my institution we tend to forget to test is completing the course. What does it look like? And I haven't found a great way to handle that, but it's one of the most common troubleshooting issues that come in, is that a user got their certificate and has barely even started. They're not checking. It does kind of follow what you're stating, checking restrictions and whatnot, but there's a lot of focus on the start, but not too much on the end. So I haven't gotten a solution per se yet, but just wanted to share.
Yeah, no, that's that thing. Or if you start getting those support tickets, like, hey, I'm stuck at 95%. You're like, oh, I know exactly what that is. And so a lot of these things, if you can find that time and that consistency, the process for your organization to do this, you will save yourselves so much time on the support end of things if your course is just running smoothly. Instead, spend your time with the content. I see one here. Oh, up here.
Oh, hello. I'm Paola from Moodle Association of Italy. You have asked what else do we test, and I work a lot with European projects. So what I noticed in the last 10 years of my life, it's testing time to completion. So each different culture has a different way of studying content. When you have a multilingual or multicultural public, you need to test for all the ways of studying of that different cultures. So that's something I suggest to test if you have international courses. Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Hi, Jess.
Hey.
One thing that I've done in the past when I'm asking people to go through and test things, and I want feedback, is I'll put a very short quiz style thing in there. I use the choice activity when I use Moodle, and I'll ask, did we meet the objectives? And it's a yes or no. And if someone says no, if the objective was like clarity or understanding navigation, then I know I need to loop back and something's gone on. But it's a super quick and easy way to gather feedback as the people are going through that process and iterate on it.
I love that. Thank you. It's the afternoon. I know we're all getting sleepy. Thank you.
Hi, it's not exactly what you're asking, but less pre-testing, more post-testing, having like a focus group or a student committee and having a chat with them about what's actually quite annoying about the process, because it could be that when you're running through that one course, it seems perfectly fine to you. But when a student is handling maybe 8 different courses at the same time, they might be really frustrated that, that activity is a really annoying one to do over and over and over again for different content. But so, for example, like a group sign-up is what we have on many different courses. I made a separate page, the links to all of the different sign-up locations on all the different courses, just because it was a bit annoying, actually.
I think that's really great. I hadn't thought about that before. The fatigue and the burnout you can give your learners, and you want to start things off right. And if you set a bad impression from the beginning of them being annoyed, you've already lost some of their attention and some of their focus for what you want them to get out of your course. So I think that's a fabulous thing to focus on for that user testing. Thank you for sharing. You got one over here?
Hello, I was wondering about the language used when we get feedback. So it's like maybe we see something on an Excel spreadsheet and we're trying to think, okay, what exactly do they mean? So I suppose I'm asking, how do we make it easier easier for users to explain what the issue is?
Oh, yes, that's a good question. So I'd say it is a balance between what Amy was talking about of having some general things they rate. So you can get that overall vibe of where they're struggling or where they see those gaps. And if you can have your user testing be not anonymous so that you can follow up with them afterwards, because that's a very common thing. Someone's like, oh, this is broken or this is annoying, and they type it, but it may not make sense later out of context when we're looking at it. If it is going to be anonymous user testing, have, if you can, pointed questions related to sections, activities, and ask them to explain or point out where things are as best you can. Now, we can't require this, right? So they may be kind of vague in your feedback. So sometimes we're a little stuck. I've seen sometimes I can piece together from other students. So I get one piece from this tester and a different piece from this one, and together sometimes you can bring that together.
Hi, greetings from Estonia. It relates to the post-testing. As a non-English learning students, I don't have enough time to enter the Estonian translation. So the new plugins often are in English, so the user starts saying, okay, can you translate that? But I use also to make it more accessible if some upgrade is a bit hard. For example, add in my own explanation somewhere, or some emoticon there. So translation is a really good tool, but I wish I would have more time to do it, because I'm only one person in my school.
Yeah, and I think that's where we all have to give ourselves a little grace, that we are sometimes a team of one on these, right? And in the States, we don't have unfortunately, the same language diversity you have over in Europe or in other countries. So I don't have that same experience with testing in different languages, but I appreciate you sharing that. And I think it's, the saying is, perfection is the enemy of progress. So we just know that if you can test and catch some things, that's fabulous. But know that if you catch things along the way, it's an iterative process. You can always adjust later, make improvements from year to year.
Hi. So first of all, I love how much effort people put into testing content before pushing it to the students. My question is, isn't what you're proposing kind of a second level before publishing my activities, my course contents? Because now you have the edit mode and you have the view mode. And I'm thinking about a third mode that is in between. So especially if I'm developing course content with colleagues, that I would have something like, it's kind of hidden, but you can push notes on it, you can give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And especially if you're trying to get more AI into course content, then we want to increase our reviewing process. So I think having this thing in between, I mean, you can emulate something like that with different user groups in a course, but I think having this more on a higher level, to have this not, it is edited, but it's not published, something in between.
Yes, so you're saying less of a question, more of a feature request or feature idea with that. I think that is a really cool idea. One of the poster sessions downstairs was talking about not that far, but having easier like toggle to these student modes or login as that's a bit cleaner. But I love that idea of being able to have those notes and those edits. I changed this here, so, like inline comments and tracking kind of thing right there, which then I think would address this individual's question over here about what do you do when it's vague? And you're like, what are you talking about? Where are you talking about this? That would help address that as well. So I love that idea. Thank you. Yes.
Over here. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for your presentation, Jess. I'm Livingston White from Jamaica, the University of the West Indies, where I am a lecturer. And I have a suggestion. You know, within the university system, our Office of the Campus Registrar, for example, is already collecting feedback from students every semester at the end of the semester for accreditation purposes on, you know, course evaluations, where they ask questions about the lecturer and about the course. I've never seen them ask questions about your use of the Moodle platform to support your learning. And so perhaps as IT persons, we need to be lobbying for that type of general data collection to include questions about the technical aspects of the learning platform. Okay, so that's a suggestion I'm making. And I'll make a shameless plug for my talk tomorrow in this room at 3 o'clock, where I share some experiences about this very same thing, trying to do research on the use of Moodle in my department, which teaches media and production courses. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And I love that that ties into that iterative process. If it's not just about before, you can do it afterwards too, and continually improving that. I do want to apologize. Again, this was formatted better before, but the font seems to have changed, so this is aligned a little funky here. Anything else? Any questions? Any ideas you want to share?
Maybe just one more. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Gareth. I'm from the University of Glasgow. In the last, say, 18 months, we've done quite a lot of UX testing because we introduced templates. So one thing we tested was the actual Moodle course formats and which ones the students preferred to create our templates. But one of the other things we've been testing is the actual, if people know about design, the affordances of some of the activities that are available within Moodle. So, for example, comparing a drag and drop created in H5P to the same drag and drop created in the Moodle quiz, and then looking at how how the interaction works and if one of them's better, but not just for the students, for the staff creating them, because they're obviously, the user interface is different for each one. So you can look at both the usability of the interface creating it and then what the students think of it as well.
Did you find that, I'm going to go back and forth here. I love this conversation. Did you find that information really useful in adjusting things?
Yeah, we did, especially for creating any interactive activities, because, you know, you can create, in some ways, you can create them in so many different ways. And so it's good to get feedback on which tool you're actually going to use and which interactions you're going to use to, you know, show the same content, because there are a number of different ways you can do it.
Yeah. Which theme did they like, or course format did they like best?
We went for free in the end. We've got grid, collapsed topics, and tiles. They didn't like topics, which this is how, because that doesn't really exist anymore in Moodle because of the upgrade. But so we went for those free, but we're always iterating on them. So another good tip is to do like a baseline test of your courses. So then you have that data, and every time you iterate, you can compare it to the baseline at the very beginning of your testing to see if it's improved or not. So, but we're quite lucky we have a UX team, so we can work with them to do the user testing and stuff. So we build it and they test it for us.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. And thank you to everyone who was here and everyone who shared. This is one reason I love the Moodle community, because we all have this shared expertise we can bring together. So thank you for coming today.